versus the timeless. Self-time governs nearly everything we do. We are born into it. We measure ourselves by it. We race against it, surrender to it, and grieve it when it slips away. We wear it on our wrists. We schedule it in calendars. We speak of running out of it. And sometimes, just sometimes, we feel as if we've stepped outside of it. But what is time, really? And perhaps more hauntingly, can something eternal exist within a life so defined by beginnings and ends? Can the soul be touched by time, or is it what time passes through? This question is not just poetic, it is existential, because beneath every birthday, behind every aging face, inside every ticking second, lives a deeper mystery. One that philosophers, mystics, and physicists have all tried to confront. Is your essence part of time or beyond it? To begin, let's look at time from the scientific lens. In physics, time is not absolute. Einstein showed us that time bends, stretches, and slows. Near the speed of light, time dilates. In gravity wells, like near a black hole, time moves differently. A clock ticking on a mountain will run faster than one at sea level. Time is relative. And yet, we don't feel it that way. To us, time feels like a one-way street, linear, forward-moving. We call it the arrow of time, from past to present to future. But even that is an illusion. The second law of thermodynamics, entropy, says that disorder tends to increase, which is what gives time its direction. But at the quantum level, many equations work just as well forward as backward. Time, it seems, is not as fixed as we thought. In other words, time might not be what we think it is. And if time itself is not stable, how can we assume that what we are is completely tied to it? Now, let's shift from science to self. The ego, your identity, your name, your past, your future goals, is built in time. It remembers, it anticipates, it tracks, it compares. The ego says, I was born here. I became that. I will be this. But the soul, if we dare to speak of it, is not so easily dated. The soul doesn't seem to live in chronology. It lives in moments of truth. It awakens in sudden stillness. It stirs in dreams, art, love, and death. It arrives when the mind gets quiet and time feels irrelevant. Have you ever experienced a moment where time stood still, where something felt ancient and new at the same time? A lover's first glance, a funeral's silence, a child's laughter echoing down a hallway. In those moments, you weren't tracking the hour. You were being, and being is not bound by clocks. So what is the soul in relation to time? Some traditions say the soul is eternal. In Hinduism, the Atman, the innermost self, is unborn and undying. In Christianity, the soul is often viewed as immortal, surviving beyond death. In Sufism, the soul is a divine spark seeking to return to the beloved. And in Buddhism, while the self is seen as an illusion, awareness is timeless, a clear sky behind the passing clouds. Even science hesitantly hints at something strange. In near-death experiences, altered states, deep meditation, people report the collapse of time, the presence of a timeless awareness, a sense of merging with something vast. These aren't proofs, but they are signals, echoes, and perhaps invitations. Because here's the real question. What happens when you stop living in time and begin living from the soul? To live from the soul is to relate to time differently. You still use a clock, but it no longer owns you. You remember the past, but you don't drown in it. You plan for the future, but you aren't enslaved by it. Instead, you begin to inhabit what the mystics call the eternal now. Not just this moment, but the depth of this moment. A moment that is both fleeting and infinite, specific, yet unbound. In the eternal now, time is not the enemy. It is the stage on which the soul dances. And the dance is always new. Aging, death, and the memory of the timeless time reveals itself in the mirror. First as curiosity, counting birthdays, then as fascination, measuring progress, and eventually as ache. Lines deepen, hair grays, energy softens, joints remember the miles walked. We call it aging, a reminder that the body belongs to time, that we too are part of the world's unfolding story. But here's the deeper question. As the body ages, does the soul? Because something in us doesn't feel older. Something in us resists the measurement. Ask a 70-year-old about their inner world and they might tell you, "I feel like the same person I was at 25. This isn't just nostalgia, it's a signal, a quiet knowing that the deepest part of us isn't moving with the calendar. So what is that part? Aging reveals a paradox. As time shapes the outer form, the inner witness often grows more still. In youth, we chase time. In age, we contemplate it. In the in-between, we wrestle with it. And eventually, we encounter the question behind all questions. What happens when time runs out? Death is the most radical confrontation with time. It is the punctuation at the end of our story. Or so we believe. But what if death is not the end of time, but the end of being bound by it? Cultures around the world speak of death as a transition, not a termination. The ancient Egyptians saw life as a preparation for the afterlife. Tibetan Buddhists describe the bardo, a transitional state after death. Christian mystics speak of the soul returning to God. Modern near-death experiencers report encounters with beings of light, panoramic life reviews, and timeless realms of awareness. Again, these aren't scientific proofs, but they are consistent signals. Across geography, language, and centuries, the feeling that something continues. That consciousness is not fully extinguished when the body stops. That what dies is the vehicle, not the passenger. Let's step back for a moment. Imagine that consciousness is like light shining through a stained glass window. The window is the personality, the ego, the story. Time shapes the window, cracks it, colors it, evolves it. But the light remains. Maybe what we call soul is that light. Not limited to a shape or a story or even a lifespan, but shining through this moment and the next. And if that's true, then death is not the extinguishing of the light, but a return to its source. Now let's return to the living. If we are timeless beings living through temporary forms, then how should we relate to time? The mystics say, reverently, not as a curse, but as a canvas, not as a threat, but as a gift. Because time allows the soul to express, through music, through love, through suffering and healing and longing and creation. Each moment is a brushstroke, each day a page, each relationship a stanza in a poem only the soul can write. The pain of time is real. So is the loss, the impermanence, the grief, but so is the beauty. Would we treasure a moment if we knew it would last forever? Would we forgive or say, "I love you," or risk or grow, without the pressure of time pushing us to choose? Time breaks us open, but it also reveals what never breaks. The part of us that watches, that loves beyond reason, that remembers what we are, even when we forget. There's a strange phenomenon reported by people in near-death experiences, a kind of panoramic life review. A moment where the soul sees every choice, every gesture, every wound and act of love, all at once. Not from judgment, but from understanding, and time collapses. Imagine that. Your whole life, not as a sequence, but as a pattern, a mosaic, a single gesture of presence, unfolding in time. This is not just poetic. It suggests something astonishing, that the soul remembers outside of time. It carries impressions not just as memory, but as meaning. And meaning, unlike memory, doesn't fade. It expands. This is the soul's relationship to time, not linear, not measurable, but imprinted with essence. Living as a timeless being in a timed world, so, how does one live inside of time without being confined by it? How do we move through a world of deadlines, aging, and impermanence, while holding the awareness that we are not defined by any of it? This is where spirituality becomes practical. Not as dogma, not as belief, but as a way of relating to time itself. To live as a timeless being in a timed world is to honor time without fearing it. It is to show up fully for this moment, without clinging to the next. It is to make love, art, decisions, and mistakes without imagining they define your eternal worth. It is to feel sadness without thinking you're broken, to face death without believing you're ending, to remember that life is not what you accumulate in time, but how deeply you inhabit it. The soul doesn't count minutes, it registers meaning, and meaning is timeless. A touch, a glance, a moment of courage, a silent act of compassion. These are not things you can schedule, but they become the most enduring parts of your existence. They are what echoes after the clock stops ticking. Let's go deeper. What happens when you begin living from the soul's sense of time? You begin to slow down, not out of laziness, but out of reverence. You begin to listen, not just to words, but to silences. You begin to notice the way a leaf falls, the weight of your breath, the softness of someone's eyes. Time becomes less of a tyrant, more of a teacher, because every moment becomes a gate, and every gate opens into now. The mystics say, eternity is not endless time, it is the absence of time. When you meditate, when you lose yourself in a moment of awe, when you touch someone you love without needing to own them, you're not outside of time, you're beneath it. In those moments, you're not just witnessing life, you're witnessing yourself beyond the mind's clocks and calendars. You are presence, you are awareness, you are the soul noticing itself. Let's remember, clocks measure movement, but the soul? The soul doesn't move in time. It inhabits moments, like a flame within a lantern, steady even as the wind howls. Like stillness within music, present in the silence between notes. To live as the soul is to surrender the obsession with more time, and to bow to the depth of this time. It's not about how long you live, it's about how real each moment becomes. And here's the most radical idea. The more timeless your awareness becomes, the more sacred time itself feels, because you're no longer rushing through it. You're inhabiting it, fully, fiercely, tenderly. So, can the soul be touched by time? Perhaps the better question is, can time be touched by the soul? Every time you pause and breathe, every time you notice beauty, every time you forgive, let go, love, or simply become still, you touch time with eternity. And in those moments, time is no longer a line from birth to death. It is a circle, a spiral, a song, and the soul sings through it. Not in hours, not in years, but in presence. As this episode ends, don't rush back into the next thing. Sit here a little longer. Let your breath move slowly. Feel the silence behind your thoughts. That silence is not empty. It is full of who you are, not who you've been, not who you'll become, but who you are. When you stop measuring and start remembering. Because deep down, beyond time's shadow, you are not a clock. You are not a schedule. You are not a race against the future. You are what the future cannot touch. You are the eternal, living this moment. And that is more than enough. Next time on the Syntax of the Soul series, we explore healing the fragmented self. Until then, stay curious, stay conscious. If this stirred something inside you, subscribe, like, and share this with a fellow seeker.